It used to seem like a dream that Danny Koker's hit show Counting Cars would bring together custom builds and true friends. But like any kingdom, it started to fall apart. Fans are left with more questions than answers as familiar faces go missing. A few quietly left, some were pushed out, and some left behind rumors of betrayal and drama that never really went away. If you know what really happened in Count's Customs, you will never watch the show the same way again. Prepare, since Danny Koker is finally going to name the 5 worst workers who didn't make the cut. Rolly Sabo has been a fan favorite since the beginning of Counting Cars. He worked as a detailer in the shop and was known as Rockin' Rolly. He was also the show's funny relief. Rolly stood out in every scene with his strong Hungarian accent, big personality, and easy laugh. Rolly turned the garage into a party every time he worked on the metal, vacuumed the inside of the cars, or told jokes with Kevin and Danny. But there was real ability behind the jokes. Rolly was in charge of making sure that every finished car looked great before it was given to a customer or put in front of the camera. Once Rolly got to work, smudges, fingerprints, and dust had no chance. He worked hard at his job, and Danny often told him how great it was. People loved him, and each season made him more well-known. That's why it was so strange when he disappeared. From season 2 to season 6, Rolly was on the show a lot. After that, he was gone. There was no talk about it on the team, and there was no goodbye scene. As always, the story spread faster when no one spoke. Some people said Rolly got into a big fight with some staff members. Some people said he was fired because he got into a fight with the TV show's directors or was late too many times. This is the most scary story that came out in 2017. When the news said that Rolly's trailer had been broken into and tools and equipment worth thousands of dollars had been stolen. It was a real theft, and the Las Vegas News proved it. Rolly wrote a short message on social media about what happened, which made it clear that he was sad and angry. But after that, he didn't say anything else. It's interesting that there were no legal issues after Rolly left. He wasn't charged or sued for anything, and Danny and the team haven't said anything bad in public. In other words, if there was a problem, it was taken care of quietly in the shop and stayed that way. It's thought by some people that Rolly left because he was tired of the hard work and ready to start something new on his own. In fact, that's what he did. Rolly Sabo started his own company in Las Vegas called Rockin' Rolly Custom Detailing. It is a mobile detailing service. He's not on TV anymore, but he still fixes cars. People say he does a great job. Many people have been buying from him for a long time, and they know he does good work. Rolly has been quiet about the real reason he left Counting Cars, just like many other people who did the same thing. While he was on TV, he was having a hard time, and his quiet exit shows that not all moves are about fights in public. They are sometimes about making choices and starting over. If someone leaving quietly can make a fuss, what about someone who was a mix of colors and personalities just by being there? Mike Henry was Counting Cars' rock star. Mike was the most exciting person in the garage. He wore a famous helmet with horns, had a bright haircut, and was always on the go. He wasn't just there to make people laugh, though. Mike was the host of the show's main airbrush artist. He had a unique mix of crazy ideas and real skill. Mike painted cars, bikes, and even helmets so that they moved like works of art. He painted skulls that breathed fire and strange sci-fi scenes. His fans loved him for his unique style, his funny jokes, and the fact that he really wanted to push the limits of custom design. But that love often caused trouble. But Danny Koker respected Mike's skills, and there were times when their thoughts did not match, both on camera and off. Mike liked to say bold things, try new things, and break the rules. Dan, on the other hand, was willing to try new things, but he had to keep his business safe, meet goals, and make sure customers were pleased. This tension got out of hand sometimes. It was also said that Mike had trouble with what the show required. Mike made hints in interviews and on social media about how stressful it is to work with limited time. In this case, they had to finish complicated designs while shooting scenes and doing what the producers told them to do. Being a reality TV star and a full-time artist put a lot of stress on him. Mike spent less and less time on TV over the years. He was in some episodes still, but not as many as he was when the show first started. Some fans thought he might have been fired, while others thought he had decided to work less. Mike finally turned his attention to his own brand, Horny Mike Designs. His Las Vegas-based company has grown into a full-fledged business. He makes custom airbrushed items, motorcycle helmets, and one-of-a-kind things that look more like they belong in an art show than a garage. Mike also posts a lot on social media, where he talks about his projects, jokes, and interesting things that happen in his life behind the scenes. Mike never stopped working for Count's Customs like some other past cast members did. Mike is still one of the most memorable people to work at the Count's Customs garage, Scott Jones, even though he and Danny Koker had many fights. Now let's look at a departure that was shrouded in mystery and reports of money problems, but was found to be legal in the end. Early on in the show's run, Scott Jones was in charge of keeping things in order. During the first 2 seasons of Counting Cars, Scott was the shop manager and bookkeeper. Danny Koker was the shop's heart and soul, and the rest of the crew fixed cars and painted them. Scott was also in charge of money, making sure things got done on time, and sometimes saying no. Scott didn't, and then without much notice, was gone. He was never seen on the show again after season 2. There was no one to say goodbye, no official reason on camera, and no emotional farewell. There was only silence. As expected, people started asking questions right away, and rumors started to get around. Scott was said to have been caught misusing money or even stealing from the business. It was different from a later case that would shock the shop, though, because Scott was never charged. Scott has not been officially charged with any crime, and there is no public lawsuit or police record that links him to any crime. In terms of the law, his exit was clear. This difference is important because it sets legal conduct apart from TV dramas and guesses. The only thing that was ever said was that Scott went to Tennessee to be near his family. He did a good job because that's where he ended up. Since then, Scott Jones has been running Koker's Extreme Automotive in Rand Mountain, Tennessee. It is a high-performance shop that does special builds, restorations, and repairs. He has even been on Netflix's Swap Shop, a reality show about treasure hunts and collectors in small towns across America. Scott has never talked about his time counting cars in public despite the reports, and Danny hasn't said anything about the real reason Scott left. It's still not clear if the tension behind the scenes got too high or if there were deeper arguments about money. After 2 tough seasons, it was clear that both men were ready to go their different ways, and neither looked back. His job as the numbers guy and the fact that he always fought with Danny over money probably made things worse, which is what caused him to leave. The final betrayal of Joseph Frontier. The last person to leave Count's Customs was a complete shock that broke the trust that people had in the company. There are quiet people at every job. They stay in the background, don't make a lot of noise, and don't usually get caught on camera. But the people you least expect to do the most damage are sometimes the ones you do. One of those people was Joseph Frontier on Counting Cars. Most people who watched probably didn't even remember his face, but Frontier was more than just another team member. He wasn't painting flames or welding car frames. He was dealing with money, which was a lot more important. Frontier was hired to keep the books for the company and handle payroll, keep an eye on prices, and make sure that Count's Customs always had enough money. His job was very important in a company that did high-end custom builds with costs of many thousands of dollars. But in 2016, that quiet accountant became the heart of a big problem that everyone could hear. Court papers showed that Count's Customs, Danny Koker's shop, had sued Joseph Frontier, saying that he had stolen more than $75,000 from the business. There were more than just small mistakes or waste going on here. The claims were very serious, clear, and full of details. Frontier was accused of using company money to buy personal items, such as a big down payment on a Range Rover and many plane tickets for personal trips, according to the lawsuit. The claims were even worse because he allegedly tried to hide the money as well as taking it. He was sued for changing Danny's signature on several papers and bank records so that the theft would be harder to find. This was a big blow to a company that was proud of its honesty, dedication, and hard work. People who worked at Count's Customs thought of it as more than just a yard, they saw it as a family. It was not only inappropriate for someone in such a high position to break trust in such a public way, it was also very personal. Danny didn't just blame the bookkeeper for everything. The suit also named Randstad USA, the staffing agency that found Frontier the job. It was said that the agency did not do enough to check Frontier's past or talk about problems at his old jobs. Count's Custom basically said that Randstad sent them a time bomb that was set to go off and then did nothing about it. The case got a lot of attention, especially from people who watched the show. People were shocked. People who worked on counting cars had always had some disagreements with each other, but no one thought that a theft scandal would happen to the team. That was the kind of drama that didn't need to be cut down to feel powerful. Still, if you pay close attention to the show, Frontier's exit, it was met with a strange lack of noise. There was no fight caught on camera, no answer from Danny, and no last goodbye. He just vanished from the show without a trace. The builds went on, and the show kept going. The audience was left to figure things out by reading court papers and news stories. The fact that Frontier was totally hidden from view made everything even stranger. Others who used to be on the show have been seen on social media or in interviews since leaving the show, but Joseph Frontier disappeared totally. After the case went public, it was like he had become nothing. Nobody is sure if he did that on purpose or because he was in a lot of trouble with the law. As for the court case itself, public records show that the disagreement ended up going to court. But many of the last details are still secret or the public doesn't know everything about them. The issue was taken seriously by Count's Customs, but Danny Koker never talked about what happened in public. That quiet says a lot. Danny is known for having a big personality and loving to share stories. His decision to keep quiet about Frontier could have been him setting a limit. Not wanting to draw more attention to the incident could have been a reason. For someone who is so loyal, the betrayal may have been too painful to talk about. This much is certain. Count's traditions will never be the same again because of what Joseph Frontier did. It wasn't just the money that was taken, trust was also broken. It's hard for Danny Koker to get over a wound like that because he built his business on respect, love, and quality work. When Shannon Account quietly quit, it was the only time a crime was proven to have happened during an employee exit. This theft is the worst breach of trust. After the shocking betrayal of Joseph Frontier, we now move on to a much less dramatic figure whose absence fans felt very strongly. When it came to the people on counting cars, Shannon Account may have been the most overlooked. He was focused, calm, and very good at what he did. He wasn't the loudest person in the shop, but he was one of the best at building custom motorcycles. Shannon was Count's main custom bike builder and helped make some of the most famous bike changes on the show, and the great work he did spoke for itself. His dad, Jimmy, was friends with the Koker family for a long time and taught Shannon everything he knew about motorcycles. He worked for Evil Twin Cycles in Las Vegas and met Danny Koker there. Since then he has been making motorcycles for Count's Customs. Shannon was always there in